All right, welcome to Rewatch or Return, the podcast where we put movies through the ultimate test across 10 universal categories to decide, does it call for a definite rewatch, a definite trip to the return bin, or does our subjectivity cause it to fall somewhere in between? As you can see, I'm not in a normal situation. I have just moved, and so I'm a little bit out of whack with my things. I don't really have a spot to do this yet that's best. I decided to forego the normal camera because I can't really get away from animals at the moment. I don't want a camera knocked over. So here I am with my MacBook FaceTime camera on my computer. For those of you who are watching, you understand what I'm talking about. The rest of you who are listening, this probably won't be any different at all. This week, we are going to look at While You Were Sleeping. Okay, this is a movie that it's kind of like a seasonal, Christmassy movie that I watch probably every year around this time. Anyway, it's been a couple of weeks. Thanksgiving was here, took a week off for that, and then had to move and had some stuff out of order, and so here I am with the basic of basics so that we can at least get the podcast back going. With that all down, let's move right into Fast Forward Facts. Let's rewind to 1995 when romantic comedies were cozy, soundtracked by soft acoustic guitar, and powered by charming misunderstandings instead of dating apps. Into that world came While You Were Sleeping, the movie that officially crowned Sandra Bullock as America's newest rom-com sweetheart. Bullock plays Lucy Moderates, a lonely Chicago transit worker who saves a handsome stranger, Peter Gallagher, from an oncoming train. While he's unconscious in the hospital, a mix-up leads his quirky family to believe Lucy is his fiancée, and instead of correcting them, she suddenly finds herself wrapped in warmth, love, and holiday sweaters. But the real magic starts when she meets Peter's brother Jack, played by Bill Pullman, at his most effortlessly likable. Directed by John Turteltaub of National Treasure fame, for me anyway, the film cost around $17 million and became a surprise box office hit, earning over $180 million worldwide. It also cemented Bullock's rise right after Speed, showing she could handle action, comedy, and romantic charm without missing a beat. Behind the scenes, the movie originally had a much different setup. Lucy was written as a man, and the unconscious patient was a woman. Studio execs thought the plot worked better and less creepily if the roles were reversed. That rewrite turned the script into the lovable winter rom-com we know today. Fun fact, Bill Pullman wasn't the first choice for Jack. The studio initially wanted a bigger name, but Turteltaub insisted Pullman had the everyday warmth audiences would fall for. He was right. Test audiences immediately loved him, calling him the guy you actually marry. The Callahan family, played by Peter Boyle, Glynis Johns, Nicole Mercurio, and others, improvised many of their overlapping dinner table lines. Their chemistry was so real that Bullock joked it was actually easy to act like she wanted to join their family because she genuinely did. Speaking of Sandra Bullock, she insisted on doing Lucy's iconic token booth scenes authentically. The production got special permission to film at actual Chicago Transit Authority stations during late-night hours, and many of the background commuters were real CTA employees. Another great behind-the-scenes tidbit, the ice-walking scene between Lucy and Jack, totally unscripted. Bullock and Pullman were genuinely slipping on a patch of unexpected ice, and the crew kept rolling because the awkward stumbles felt perfectly in character. And here's one more fast-forward gem. Peter Gallagher, who spends most of the movie asleep, joked that it was the easiest paycheck of his life. Still, he committed so fully to the character that fans often forget he's barely conscious in the film at all. While You Were Sleeping remains one of the most beloved rom-coms of the 90s because it mixes sweetness, humor, and quiet loneliness with a big-hearted message about how sometimes family is found. All right, with that down, let's move on into what the critics said. This is where we look at the first 10 top critic reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, which Rotten Tomatoes started formatting things a little bit differently, so the way that this is viewed now is a little bit differently. There's more or less reviews per screenshot or screen grab for those of you who are watching. It's going to look a little different this time around. Dwayne Burge from The Hollywood Reporter says, Bullock gives Lucy just the right amount of edge. Pullman's performances as Peter's down-to-earth younger brother is also a deft mix of moxie and frustration. Bullock, Anthony Lane from The New Yorker says, Bullock knows one of the secrets of doing romantic comedy, treating the romance as a good joke. Stephen Ray from the Philadelphia Inquirer says, compared to While You Were Sleeping, even the half-baked scenario of the Marissa Tomei, Robert Downey Jr. romance Only You looks witty and inventive. He didn't like it. Jay Boyer from Orlando Sentinel says, it's Bullock's first shot at a role in which she plays a second fiddle, neither to male nor special effects. She turns out to be every bit as delightful as anyone might have expected. Then we got Jamie Bernard from the New York Daily News, who says, a cute premise with engaging leads, but little else to keep you awake. Michael Wilmington from the Chicago Tribune says, it plays like a movie dreamed up by people in a studio marketing department who'd decided to bare their souls. Okay. Empire Magazine says, this year's Sleepless in Seattle, only better. Lisa Schwartzbaum. Interesting name there. Not one I've seen before. Says Bullock just about knocks herself exhausted being winsome and lovable. Jonathan Rosenbaum from Chicago Reader says the film's casual warmth may make you tolerate some of the shortcomings, especially since Bullock seems to be having such a fine time with her first starring role. Then Leonard Clady, or Claddy, maybe, I'm not sure how to say that, says director John Turteltaub has a smooth style suited to classic farce and knows just how to pace the material to accentuate the positive. All right, that is what the critics said. Oh, I forgot to mention, the tomato meter for this film was an 81%, and our popcorn meter sits at 79. Pretty close between your critics and your audience. I'm thinking about my own score, which was pretty close. If I stick with how I've scored this already. Okay. By the way, those of you who are watching, and I'm trying to kind of keep an eye on the framing of where I'm at on this camera. It's opposite, so every move I make is the opposite direction, which is really throwing me off. Sorry if I start looking like I'm having some weird stuff go on camera. It's because it is odd looking to me, and I'm trying to move and situate myself, and every move I make is actually doing the opposite of what I want it to do, which is posing a problem. Moving on to First Time or 50th. This is where we talk about, is it your first time to watch the film, or is it your 50th, or more than likely somewhere in between. Have you seen it several times or not? For me, I have seen this several times. Grew up watching this, like I said, kind of maybe not necessarily every year, but this was kind of a thing that I would watch definitely anytime it was on, and enjoyed it. The comedy, it's just a fun movie to sit down and watch and relax, and it's very lighthearted and all that, and the people are really enjoyable when you're watching it. There's a scene in the film where a kid goes to throw a paper and somehow like wrecks his bike. It's just like the most random early morning shot of a paper delivery kid who throws the paper and in the process turns the handlebars on his bicycle and wrecks his bike. And that's a very memorable scene for me. That thinking back when I'm younger, that's a scene that I always think about my dad laughing about and thinking was so funny, which it is. Pretty funny moment. First Time or 50th, though, I mean, yeah, I've seen this more times than I can count on both hands. That's definitely for sure. I don't know about 50, but I wouldn't surprise me over the years, maybe. Yeah, not a whole lot more to say about that. Moving on to be continued. Would a sequel for this film work? And if there's a sequel, should there have been? Well, there's not a sequel to this film. I feel like maybe they could have done something. If you could have done something in a way where you brought, where now Lucy and Jack are together, and you can somehow bring the family back for some kind of thing, you wouldn't call it While You Were Sleeping. It would have to be a different name. Again, like I've talked about many times before, you can have sequels to movies that are a completely different name. It's kind of like, I can't think of I was fixing to give you an example, and then the names of the movies completely slipped my head as I was going to give you an example. Dang, why can I not? Oh, it would be like Get Shorty and then Be Cool. Right, one's a sequel to the other, but they're not the same name, and they're kind of separate stories. Anyway, you could do that. I feel like there's probably a story there with good writers who could, create something. I don't think there necessarily should be, but I feel like if they were wanting to milk it, that there's probably a sequel there. You could bring Peter back for some kind of thing where, like, okay, now Peter's getting married or something, and then there's some shenanigans that happen involving his wedding, and who knows, they could have done something along those lines just to get all the folks back together, and it would have been clearly a comedy more than it would have been anything else. But yeah, I mean, there could have been, there's not. Should there have been? Probably not. All right, before we jump into the final segment, today's episode is brought to you by PrepStartsNow.com, your go-to spot for emergency and outdoor preparedness. If you're anything like me, you'd rather be prepared and not need it than need the essentials and not have them. From 72-hour emergency essentials to camping gear, car emergency essentials, multi-tools, first aid, and even home gardening supplies as you start to grow some of your own food, they've got you covered for all of it. And the best part is, as a listener, you can use the promo code REWATCH to get a 15% site-wide discount. And you'll also be helping out the show as they give us a small reward for your business in the process. Head to PrepStartsNow.com/discount/rewatch. That's PrepStartsNow.com/discount/rewatch, or simply enter the code REWATCH at checkout and get prepared today. All right, so quick apology for those of you who are watching. I know that the camera is a little bit shaky. I can't help that. It's sitting on my lap and it's attached to my computer. That's just kind of what I'm having to do right now, as I don't trust setting up a camera around a couple of felines that like to knock stuff over, and I can't get away from them at the moment. I don't have a way to set up in another room as it sits. So this is just kind of how it's going to have to be. So for you listeners, it doesn't matter. For those of you watching, it is going to be a little bit shaky at times. Let's do a quick recap of the film. There's not a lot that I would like to recap going down the thing, but let's just kind of hit the basics. So the film starts out, and you have Lucy, who works at a toll booth for the train. There you have Peter, who's this guy that she sees regularly, who travels on the train. Anyway, she one day sees this guy fall into the tracks, and he's unconscious, and so she saves his life. She pulls him off the tracks, gets him out of the way, saves his life, goes to the hospital with him, and in all this confusion, somebody thinks that, she's kind of dreaming out loud about how she's going to marry him. Someone overhears it. Someone calls her his wife. There's all this confusion, and the next thing you know, the family shows up, and they're like, his fiance. And they start telling the family that she's his fiance, and she's kind of freaking out. And in the moment, she just sort of accepts it because she's like, I guess she doesn't want to disappoint them because they seem kind of excited about it. And then she also kind of sees the family as enjoyable to be around. She likes them, and so she kind of doesn't. Her father has died. She doesn't have any family around. She's all alone for Christmas, and it just kind of happens where she decides, okay, I'm going to pretend this guy's in a coma. So I'm going to pretend that, not pretend he's in a coma. He's in a coma. She's going to pretend that she's his fiance, because what does he know, and what's it hurt right now, kind of thing. So then the whole movie basically is that you have this story where she is pretending to be his fiance, even though she is not. She doesn't know anything about him other than what he looks like and that he rides the train every day. And then she, through a series of stuff, Bill Pullman ends up coming in. She meets him. He's really skeptical about the whole thing, and he's kind of trying to catch her in the lie that he feels like he knows that she's telling with all of it. And she ends up eventually getting him to believe it. There's a guy who she finds out had a pencil in his pocket when they were playing basketball, and so Peter has lost one of his testicles to that pencil playing basketball with him. And so she knows that he has only one testicle, and none of his family know that, because he's sort of not been he's kind of been, I guess, estranged from his family. Not estranged in like a bad way, just he doesn't come around. He doesn't, you know what I mean? He's too busy for them. He's got too much going on. They don't know much about his life, about what's going on. So she uses that as a thing to say that she knows him and that she knows him intimately and all that. So they look, and I think it's the mother that looks and finds out that, in fact, he does have one testicle. So through a series of stuff, they buy that she is his fiance. She kind of at least says they're all the right things to fool them. And Jack ends up accepting it, except in the process of this whole thing, Jack's trying to help her out. He's walking her around town. He's helping her take some things, places, and all this stuff ends up, these two guys essentially fall for each other. So she's falling for the brother of the guy who she says is her fiance, and the guy who she says is her fiance, his brother, who thinks she's engaged to him, is falling for her. So you have this whole weird dynamic throughout the whole film. There is a family member named Saul who knows the whole time that she is not telling the truth, because he overhears her talking to him in his sleep in the hospital room. And eventually he tells her that she's got to, tell it all. Peter wakes up and he doesn't know who she is, and they think he has amnesia, but she's still pretending and going along with everything. They keep on going along with everything, and she's fixing to get married to Peter. And she objects. I think Saul objects. I can't remember who. And then there's a whole big deal there at the wedding situation, where she walks off. And that's kind of the end of the movie. She feels like, okay, I've got to leave this family that I've known the whole entire time, that I've kind of fallen for. And she goes back to work and I guess thinks that she's lost this family because she's kind of deceived them all. And then Jack shows up at her work in the booth at the train place, and he drops a ring in the token thing. And then the whole family's standing behind him, and he's like, I need to ask you a question. So he ends up asking her to marry him. The whole family's excited because they really want Lucy to be a part of the family anyway. And then there's a marriage that you don't see, but you see them traveling away on a train that says just married on the back. I probably could have recapped that a little better. I was kind of all over the place, I feel like. I'm forgetting a lot of stuff. Been a few days since I watched the movie, but I hate making some sort of list that I'm just reading down because it feels just really sort of rigid. So some of these recaps, I'm just going off of memory and probably could be much better about it. I'll try next time. But let's move on to the final verdict and put the film to the test across 10 categories scored on a scale from 1 to 5. And those categories look like this. The scale looks like this. 5 is excellent, 4 is good, 3 is fair, 2 is weak, and 1 is poor. That's how we will score these. And the verdict scale is 10 to 20 means return it. 20 to 30 means it's return worthy, but not necessarily a definite return. 30 to 40 is a leans rewatch, but debatable. And then 40 to 50 is certified rewatchable. And let's jump right into story and plot. Is the narrative compelling and coherent? Does it still hold up on a rewatch? I think that this is a great story. Granted, there are some things that I would say are not likely, you know what I mean? Like for a family to buy all this stuff and believe a lot of this stuff and not dig a little bit more and not want to know a little bit more. I feel like most people wouldn't be fooled this easy. So like there's part of that part of the plot, story and plot, is where it I think falls apart for me just from a logical perspective. But I think it is a really well written story. I think it's a funny story. I think it's a clever story. The fact that, you know, one of the main characters is asleep the whole time in a coma while everything else is going on. It's like you don't know how to feel because you know she's lying, but you're cheering for her at the same time. And anyway, I think the story and plot is solid. And so I gave it a 4 out of 5. Moving on to characters and performances. Are the characters memorable and well acted or forgettable and flat? I think they're definitely well acted. I think they are far from forgettable and far from flat. I think much of the acting and the character creation from these actors is what makes the film, obviously. Characters and performances I think are great. I wanted to give it a 5, but I decided against it. But I think everything about everybody involved is what makes this film. The story is good, but it's the people playing the characters and how they bring those characters to life that make this film elevated to, I guess, where I would say what makes it a much more enjoyable film. So characters and performances, believe it or not, I give a 4.5 out of 5 because I think it is... it hangs that much on how well those guys did. Pacing and entertainment value. Were you entertained the whole time? Did the movie keep your attention? Does it feel too slow, too rushed, or just right? I was entertained the whole time, always am. The movie keeps my attention. I don't think there's really any bogged down, boring parts. Does it feel too slow, too rushed, or just right? I don't think it's ever too slow or too rushed. I think it's pretty solid. I mean, I think it feels good. Where it's at. That was something I thought about I thought a lot about while I was watching the movie, because I was like sort of in a place of having other things I need to do. I have been moving and trying to deal with all that and get situated, so I had to sit down to watch a film for this episode, knowing I had a whole bunch of other stuff to do, and my mind was kind of on all that other stuff. But even then, I was able to stay, locked in and enjoy the film. I didn't get zoned out, or it didn't lose me anywhere, even as many times as I've seen it. So, for pacing and entertainment value, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Moving on to dialogue and quotability. Are there iconic or memorable lines? Do people still quote it? Does the dialogue feel natural or cringy? I don't know about iconic lines. There's some memorable lines for me, anyway. The part where Joe, it's not. I don't know about necessarily lines, but some definitely memorable parts and memorable things people say. Where Joe's like, is he bothering you? Because it looks, he says it looks like he was leaning. Or doing the lean or whatever, and then he says, "Okay, but I know karate." Just a funny character. The Joe character in this movie is quite funny. And then the part where Peter Gallagher is, he's like, "I swear my brain is completely and totally fine. I have no amnesia. I remember everything. I just don't remember her." He's like spitting off his locker combination from 8th grade and his birthday and his GPA from college and all this kind of stuff. That's just like a very memorable bunch of stuff that he spits out, and the way that he does it and the looks on his face. but I don't think there's anything that's necessarily like iconic or like quotable, memorable lines that anybody quotes. But I do think the dialogue feels natural. I don't think there's anything really cringy about it. So I would say it's like good. It's not bad by any means. But there's nothing iconic about it. So I would just say it's better than fair for sure. So I'm just gonna put it at good. So for dialogue and quotability, I am giving it also a 4 out of 5. Moving on to soundtrack and score. Does the music enhance the film or date it? Does it elevate the emotional tone of the film or feel out of place? Is it iconic or generic? I don't... This music does exactly what you want it to do. Also, the song, I don't know who sings it. I should probably know who sings it, but the song that is playing as the movie starts, and I'm not going to sing it here, but there's a particular song. I can tell you how many movies that has been in. It's either been in the opening of the film or it has been in the ending of, like, the ending credits of a film. But that song has been in so much stuff. It reminds me of, like, I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, like, it may literally only be in The Secret of My Success, but I feel like Studio by Phil Collins was in like every 80s movie. And I'm probably wrong about that, but that's the way it feels. I do know for a fact, though, whoa, I bumped that. I do know for a fact that this song has been in a ton of movies, whether it be the beginning or the end of the movie, but it's been in a ton. I just don't know the name of the song. I'm not going to look it up. It wasn't that important to have here. So that was a catchy tune from a soundtrack perspective. I don't know that it enhances anything. I don't think there's anything that really dates it, but at the same time, I would feel like some of the score to the film definitely was a clear. Put it this way, I don't think it dates it, but it is very common to what was in that like 90s kind of rom-com era, or I don't know how to describe it, but there's nothing really stand out about the music, and yet I think it does its job. I don't think it's like super elevating of any emotional tone, but I don't think it feels out of place. I don't think it's iconic, but I don't think it's super generic either. So for soundtrack and score, I'm just going to put it at a basic middle of the road, fair 3 out of 5. Moving on to cinematography and visual style. Is it visually engaging or stylish? Regardless of effects budget or genre, do the camera work and effects still impress, or do they look dated or clunky? It's definitely not stylish. I do like some of the shots. I like some of the reveal shots. There's a particular one that I really, really liked, that I remember thinking about, like, as I'm watching it. It was kind of a from up, above, off, away from them, and they're walking, I believe, down some sort of, not boardwalk, but like water edge, kind of concrete walkway thing. And there is a tree that has no leaves on it, but they're hidden, behind the tree as they're walking, and you can kind of sort of see them through the I guess bare tree branches, but not really well, and then you kind of see them emerge out from under the tree. It was a particular shot that I remember as I'm watching the movie. I thought, well, that's a good looking shot. I don't really like that choice. But there's nothing super fancy about this film. There's nothing super effects laden or any camera work that's super stylish or whatever. It's kind of your basic rom-com shot, looking thing. But at the same time, I think there were some really nice choices in some of the shots. And then obviously you're in Chicago, so you have some nice looking kind of like establishing shots of the city, things like that. But it's nothing fancy. So for cinematography and visual style, I gave it a 3.7 out of 5. Not that it's not good, but I wasn't ready to put it at a 4, to be honest with you, just because I feel like it. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. I'm just putting it at a 3.7 out of 5. Moving on to originality and creativity. Does the film feel fresh and inspired, or like something you've seen 100 times? Was the film groundbreaking or formulaic? Does it bring something unique? I think this is a kind of a fresh story. I don't think that, like, obviously there's stories where somebody falls for a brother or something along the way, or obviously not in some like weird way, but you know what I mean, where somebody was involved with one character but ends up like falling for their sibling. That's not an uncommon story to see in film, but the way that this was done with the her saving him and not really even knowing him, but being in a coma and then tricking family and like, I think it's like a unique take on that concept, I guess, if you will. So it's a little fresh feeling, I would say. Definitely not like formulaic. I wouldn't say necessarily groundbreaking, but it's just like, I think it's a creative story, a creative way to tell that kind of story, use that concept. But again, it's not like we're rocking some crazy off the top super creative stuff here. So for originality and creativity, I gave it a 3.9 out of 5, just because I felt like if I put it at a 4, that'd be lifting it up a little too much, but I didn't really want to put it any closer to fair than I had to. So it's getting a 3.9 out of 5 for originality and creativity. And we're going to move on to theme and message. Is there a deeper takeaway? Does it explore ideas that resonate today? Well, yeah, I mean, I think like there's a lot of you could take away from just your general relational stuff in this film. Like, one, you have Peter, who is all about Peter and really doesn't care about anything other than what Peter has going on. And then realizes that, you know, when he wakes up from his coma, realizes that he's been doing it all wrong. He's been living all wrong. He's been treating people all wrong. He's been making everything about him and all that. So there's that. Then you have Lucy, who's all alone, and she just wants somebody. You know what I mean? She just wants family. She just wants friends. She just wants whatever. And so as you're watching the movie, you know, there's that part of the story which makes you think about, again, other people. You know, you don't know who might not have somebody, who might not have anybody to eat Thanksgiving dinner with or eat Christmas dinner with or spend the holidays with, and they might be planning on spending it all alone because they don't have anybody around. So to be mindful about those folks, I guess there's a message in this about that, you know. But then a message maybe about honesty, but how would things have been if she was honest up front, you know? Probably the whole story wouldn't have really existed. She would have just left the hospital, and then that would have been that. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's some good. There's a good message about caring for people in general, and being kind to people, and not making everything about yourself, and not living life where you're, you know, you got your head up your own rear, and you're you know, all the mirrors torn off your vehicle where you can only see where you're going, and that's all you care about. So there's that. So from a theme and message standpoint, I think those are solid things to think about. I think there's a solid message in this film, and I feel good enough, or I feel confident enough about giving it a higher score that I'm putting it at a 4 out of 5 for theme and message. Moving on to cringe factor. Any jokes, effects, or moments that haven't aged well or were always bad. Moments that make you wince now. Campy, cheesy, bad effects, outdated jokes that aren't funny, etc. No, I think the most cringy thing about this is something that I've already brought up, and that is, this is not something that I just don't think anybody would buy this. And everything was too, for a movie, everything had to be, and that's fine. It's fine that they wrote it this way. But the writers had to write in coincidence and things just kind of things just going exactly how they needed to go, and the right thing happening at the right time to keep her story up and all that. So the only thing, that's where the cringe factor loses some points for me from this, is because that's just not realistic. Again, I know it's a movie, but I'm scoring these on their own. I know it's a movie. I get it's a movie, but also I've got to acknowledge that that's completely and totally probably not how it would go at all in real life. And people wouldn't buy this story, and they would quickly figure it out that she wasn't who she said she was. She wasn't engaged to him. She didn't even know him. It wouldn't have been hard for them to figure that out. And because of that, that's the only thing that's knocking the score for cringe factor for me. So, because of that, cringe factor gets a 3.9 out of 5. And then we'll move on to nostalgia and rewatchability. Does it hold up to your memory of it? Does it still matter today? Is it timeless, or has it aged poorly? Does a rewatch ruin the magic, and would you honestly watch it again? Definitely holds up to my memory of it. As far as mattering today, it's just a rom-com from the 90s. I don't think it's really culturally relevant necessarily. Is it timeless? This is one of those films that I think years and years and years and years and years and years and years from now, anybody can sit down and enjoy, unless you're just a person who doesn't enjoy movies, or just, there's a type who can't enjoy movies, can't enjoy stories, can only really enjoy a certain thing the way they want. And I think we're getting more and more into that with upcoming generations who are left to sit around on their phones and iPads and spend all their time on TikTok and scrolling through reels, and their attention span doesn't go beyond 10 seconds. And so those people probably will never enjoy sitting down and watching this kind of film. But if you are a movie person, if you enjoy a good story, and you enjoy laughing, and you enjoy just a wholesome flick, then I think this is a movie that is timeless, actually. Has it aged poorly? Not at all. Does a rewatch ruin the magic? Not at all. And would you honestly watch it again? Absolutely. And so, for nostalgia and rewatchability, I give this a 4 out of 5. So, let's scroll over these real fast and see what our scores were. Story and plot, 4 out of 5. Characters and performances, 4.5 out of 5. Pacing and entertainment value, 4 out of 5. Dialogue and quotability, 4 out of 5. Soundtrack and score, 3 out of 5. Cinematography and visual style, 3.7 out of 5. Originality and creativity, 3.9 out of 5. Theme and message, 4 out of 5. Cringe factor, 3.9 out of 5. And nostalgia and rewatchability, 4 out of 5. Which brings us to 39 out of 50. It was so close to being a certified rewatchable movie. 1 point away. And at one point, my score, which I changed something and took it down. At one point, my score was 39.5 out of 50. And it was even closer. But I changed something and dropped it a little bit. But that's still solid. I mean, again, it's in the leans rewatch area, but it's pretty much almost at certified rewatchable for me. And that makes sense. I mean, I guess if it's 39 out of 5, we put it as, 78 out of 100, which is, and the tomato meter was, popcorn meter was 79. So I guess essentially, my score on this ends up coming right around where the audience scores were in general. But this movie is a leans rewatch, but debatable. I would say, like I've said before, to me it's certified rewatchable. But according to the individual categories scored and added up, if I'm going to follow the rules, which is what has to be done, it's not certified rewatchable. Shame. Leans rewatch, but debatable. I would debate anybody all day long about this being a rewatchable film, though. All right, with that down, that's going to be the end of this episode. I, again, apologize for the shaky camera for those of you who are watching. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit out of my element here with the way that I'm having to do this, and this train is rolling down the tracks behind me, and it is screwing me up mentally. So I better put this to an end before I make myself even more foolish looking. I will see y'all next week.